All right, so trying this again. We're going to start on 560, and this is going to be an excerpt from this work, which is a lot longer than what we have here, and it's going to be called Eve's Apology in Defense of Women. So Eve being, yes, the only Eve you really know of, the one from the Bible.
Teachers, please pardon this interruption. I apologize for the interruptions for class. At this time, if there are any sophomores that will be eligible to take a dual enrollment class next year and are interested in the University of Alabama dual enrollment program, if you will come to the conference room and meet with the dual enrollment early college representative from Alabama at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Again, let's try. We're going to leave it on so the people at home can remember what it's like to be, interrupted in class as well. So this is going to be meant to be written from the perspective of Eve. Now, it's not told from her perspective. Let me back up. It's not like she's the one talking here, but it's trying to draw, parallels about at this time period, Eve was villainized greatly. Mankind would have been fine if that stupid woman hadn't done this, this, and this. And this is one of the early steps we see in this. Again, we're looking at the 1600s where people are trying to it's early elements of feminism. I know that's a charged word. If I had a better word for it, I would use it. We need to come up with one in our society because there's the crazy feminism, and then there's just basic hey, please don't yell at us and act like we're the whole reason that society collapsed. I mean, those are two different things, all right? One of them, if you have a problem with it, meaning mainly the second one I just mentioned, no, women should get yelled at and shouldn't be allowed to do anything. Well, you need to travel back to the 1800s where that kind of behavior was still acceptable. It's not today, okay? So this is an early element of that, where they're trying to make a defense for Eve. Not that she didn't do anything wrong, but, and let me tell you something, this person's got a really good point. All right, a very good point. Now, they are taking some liberties here because it's based on the Bible. It's not biblical stuff 100%, okay? So they're not we don't have what Eve really was thinking. That doesn't come out and really say that. But they're trying to draw what we know about what the way people really are, the way most of us would think, and compare it to back then, okay? So if you look at the background there, it says, during the late 16th and early 17th centuries, a war of words raged known as the debate about women. The issue, were women by nature idle, vain, and immoral, or were they by nature good? Okay, so again, the idea was, how should we handle, are women just naturally these horrible, sinful creatures that we just have to take care of and fix, or not? Which you can see, it sounds pretty stupid, doesn't it? But that was definitely the way people felt, all right? Since most of the debaters turned to the biblical story of Eve to support their points, Eve, their assumption went, was the first woman and the image of all women after her, so all women share her nature. Lanier's poem, making the same assumption, joins the controversy with powerful pro-woman arguments. Oh, Mr. Morse, is this one of those feminist works? Yeah, get over yourself. You'll be fine, I promise. Okay? We've read enough old white guys. You can listen to a few, women voices too. It says, but surely Adam cannot be excused. Her fault, though great, yet he was most to blame. Now, right away, here's her thesis. Her thesis idea is that, yes, Eve messed up. But what was the second part? Adam's situation was worse. Now, right away, what's good about that is it immediately gets your attention. Agree or disagree? That one gets your attention. This is how good, argumentative works. That's how they happen. But you get both sides to pay attention right away. All right? It says, what weakness offered, strength might have refused. So, and then she's using their own arguments against them. Think about it. They're like, men are strong, women are weak. And they're like, okay, so she's weak. Her messing up is normal. Why? What's his excuse? Okay, all the guys in the room are like, oh, crap. Valid point. Okay? It says, being Lord of all, the greater was his shame, although the serpent's craft had her abused. God's holy word ought all his actions frame. For he was Lord and King of all the earth before poor Eve had either life or breath. Who being framed by God's eternal hand, the perfectest man that ever breathed on earth, and from God's mouth received that straight command, the breach whereof he knew was present death, yea, having power to rule both sea and land, yet with one apple one to lose that breath, which God had breathed in his beauteous face, bringing us all in danger and disgrace. She's doing a great thing. She's using the typical arguments that she would have seen, against her theory. She's using those and turning them back on the people. They're like, typical people would say men were superior because God created them him first. And God, directly breathed life in him. He did this, this, and this. And she's saying, if that's the case, then, once again, Eve didn't have that benefit. So why is Adam mess up? He directly got the command straight from God's mouth. He says, why is he messing up? Again, that's not an unfair question. That is definitely one that would trip you up if you were on the other side. If this is a debate and you've got a bunch of women here saying, no, it's Adam's fault, and a bunch of men here saying, no, you crazy idle women, you're the problem, and then they present that to you, you're going to be like, you're going to be scrambling to get away from that one. That's a knockout punch if you're not careful. It says, and then to lay the fault on Patience's back, that we poor women must endure it all. We know right well he did discretion lack, being not persuaded thereunto at all. If Eve did err, it was for knowledge's sake. The fruit being fair persuaded him to fall. Now, this one's where I say, I think they would lose me here. I think I'd be like, okay, I can get that one. They're like, she made the mistake because she wanted knowledge. Adam did it because the fruit looked good. And I would argue there. That's definitely taking some liberties with it, okay? It says, no subtle serpent's falsehood did betray him. If he would eat it, who had the power to stay him? Now, that part is a good one. She said Adam wasn't tricked into doing it. The serpent didn't trick Adam. The serpent tricked Eve. Who got Adam to eat it? Eve did. All right? Of course, if you're on the other side and you're a guy, you can easily say, oh, he still was tricked. He was tricked by her. But that just depends on how you interpret this story. All right? You can interpret it as he knew good and well what he was doing. The way I've always thought about it was Adam was like, well, no, I don't want her to suffer by herself. I'm going to go along with her. All right? You've got that idea you can look at. Really, at this point, Adam and Eve, it's not described in the Bible what each of them was thinking. All right? So you have that issue. It says, not Eve, whose fault was only too much love, which made her give this present to her dear. Now, okay. She's like, she loved Adam so much, she gave him that fruit so he could enjoy it too. Maybe she was like, well, I'm not going out on my own. You come on with me. All right? This is where we are taking some liberties, and that's where arguments do have holes that you can actually attack if you so choose. All right, it says, that which she tasted he likewise might prove, whereby his knowledge might become more clear. He never sought her weakness to reprove with those sharp words which he of God did hear. It says, he doesn't really fight, he just goes along with it. It says, yet men will boast of knowledge which he took from Eve's fair hand as from a learned book. That's a great last two lines. What are they saying at the end? It has nothing to do with the biblical passage, really. What is those last two lines saying? Yeah, we act like we do. We act like we're the smartest people around. But like the only reason they have that is because, originally of what Eve did. And kind of all right, that doesn't make it good, but okay, fair point. All right. So that's just an excerpt of that. There was a lot more to it, where she was trying to just really defend women from the abuse they were taking because of, something that happened, of course, years and years and years and years and years before this. So you do see changes start to happen in the 1600s. We think about it like really in the U.S. only getting here in like the 1900s, but you do see some changes in attitude and things like that. So it was a positive work, all right? It's not a very famous work. I don't know much about Amelia Lanier, to be honest with you. Now, this next guy, though, I do know. I've heard him a lot. All right, so if you flip over to page 563, we'll look at Richard Lovelace. He's got two really short poems, all right? First, it's called Two, and they both kind of deal with the same topics. One thing is, if you study a poet and you read more and more and more and more of their works, you'll start to realize that they do have some themes that will overlap. And this guy likes to write a lot like he's first of all, it's romantic type of poetry from this time period where they really write about, the power of love and how much it can, change your life. And we're going to see that particularly in the second one. But let's look at the first one, the shortest of the two. It's called To Lucasta Going to Wars, and that's going to be starting on question 5. 5, 6, and 7 here will be from that, okay? So not question 5. Let's look at page 563. Let's get the background on this one first, and then we'll read the poem. He says, tensions between the Church of England and the Puritans who wished to reform it had risen to a dangerous level. Foreign wars had led to a money shortage. Charles I made the situation worse by mishandling Parliament, by pressuring nobles for money, and by forcing commoners to serve in his armies. In 1642, England's Parliament went to war against England's king. Lovelace, a loyal supporter of Charles, was twice imprisoned by the king's opponents. All right. The second poem we read is going to be written from one of those times he's in jail. This one is not. This is about him going off to battle in general. All right. Okay, he says, tell me not, sweet, I am unkind, that from the nunnery of thy chaste breast and quiet mind to war and arms I fly. True, a new mistress now I chase, the first foe in the field, and with a stronger faith embrace a sword, a horse, a shield. Yet this inconstancy is such as you too shall adore. I could not love thee, dear, so much, loved I not honor more. All right, very simple rhyme scheme, very simple rhythm. It reads like a poem, unlike some. Let's look at what he's saying. All right, that's the whole poem, those three stanzas. All right. First of all, is he talking to someone in particular? Yeah, he's talking to whatever this girl, his wife, his girlfriend, whoever. He's talking to them. We know that because of the first line. Tell me not, sweet, I am unkind. So based on the first little bit, how does she feel about him going to war? Not good. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, she's upset. You know, she doesn't want him to run off to war. She wants him to be there with her because, again, this is a form of civil war. So it's dangerous. It's not like he's going overseas and she's protected, safe at home. I mean, she wants him to be there with her. What's his argument? This is the main point of the poem. It's a very short one. What's his argument for why he is going off to war? Last stanza is usually where you're going to get these things. So look in the last stanza. Silence. Come on.
I'm trying to think of
Is it because he loves her so much?
like it's something along that either he loves her so much or he's doing it for like honor for.
Yeah, he's showing that if I didn't love honor so much, you couldn't trust my love for you. So he's saying basically that if you really want to know how strong my love is, look at what I'm doing for my country. If I didn't do that, you couldn't trust my love for you either. So he's pointing out how much how much value this action has, not just because he's going out to fight for his country, but because he loves her so much, and that he would be a coward if he didn't. I mean, it's a really that's what makes it poetic, is the interesting way it presents a very common theme. You know, the idea, hey, look, I'm going off to war because I'm doing this for you, that sort of thing. But he's saying it in a much nicer way. It really comes up in the second stanza where he says, I'm not leaving you because I don't love you or anything like that. It's not about me just running away. He says, true, I'm going to chase a new mistress, like I'm chasing another girl. Well, what does he say he's going to chase? Yeah, he says three things: a sword, a horse, and a shield. They're the things he's going to have in battle. He says, true, for at least a short time, those are going to be as dear to me as you are. But if I didn't do this, you really couldn't trust who I am and what I'm about. So that's why I'm doing it. I feel like that's a really good answer. If you're about to go to war and your girlfriend's upset, that's not. I mean, maybe not say it in poetry. I realize then people are going to look at you like you're crazy. But the point of it still is well founded. Okay. Now this was a good one. I like it, but I really like the other one on the next page better. So let's look at it and then we'll be done. To Althea from prison. Notice the similarity in the last one to Lucasta on going to wars. I guess this is a new girl he's writing to now. Girl named Althea, but he kind of sets up his titles that way. To so-and-so, and then he gives the context in which he wrote it. The last one he's about to go to war. This one he's in jail. And the ending of this particularly has a really famous line that's been taken. And it sounds kind of like something we read in Paradise Lost, believe it or not. We'll bring that back up. So let's look at the first stanza, though. This is when love with unconfined wings hovers within my gates, and my divine Althea brings to whisper at the grates. When I lie tangled in her hair and fettered to her eye, the gods that wanton in the air know no such liberty. I'm not going to say that wrong just to make the rhyme work, okay? This would be one of those things where he's in a prison cell that's probably got a window facing outwards, and since this is in London, his girlfriend can come and like peek in and see him and talk to him, all right? So that's what he's talking about here, like when she comes to visit him, and he's able to, it's kind of creepy, lie tangled in her hair, which that just is a weird. I guess it was romantic back then. All right. This is when flowing cups run swiftly round with no allaying Thames, our careless heads with roses bound, our hearts with loyal flames. When thirsty grief in wine we steep, when healths and draughts go free, fishes that tipple in the deep know no such liberty. See, that final line in the last two poems is making a point. He's saying in this one fish, and the one before he's saying like birds and even the gods aren't as free as him. But what's ironic about that? He's in prison. He's not free. So what makes him think he's freer than these things? Okay, good. That being in love. All right. He says, I can escape these when I think about her, which is a pretty sentiment. All right. Last two stanzas. Yeah. It says, when like committed linnets, and if you look at the bottom, that just means birds. It's caged finches. When like committed linnets, I with shriller throat shall sing the sweetness, mercy, majesty, and glories of my King. When I shall voice aloud how good he is, how great should be, enlarged winds that curl the flood know no such liberty. So again, we're seeing that same pattern. He's speaking things that we would typically, if you're writing a poem about what it means to be free, you talk about the birds, you talk about the fish, all those types of things. And he's saying, I'm freer than all of them, even though I'm in prison. Okay? And there's a little bit of irony that really makes poems work and makes them really strong. And this is a great example of that. All right, last stanza. And these first lines are great. Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Mind's innocent and quiet take that for a hermitage. So those first two lines are the key ones. Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Don't they? Is that exactly what they do? If you've got a cage, isn't it made of things like a wall or bars? Isn't that kind of a weird statement? Okay, because he's making a point. He's saying those aren't what make it a prison. You know, you live in a house that has walls. Most of you wouldn't refer to your house as a prison. Right, depending on where you live, some of you may have bars on your windows. Once again, not referred to as a prison. So not necessarily is that the case. So he's kind of got a point, actually. Let's see what the rest of it is. So he says, mind's innocent and quiet, take that for a hermitage. You may not know hermitage. If you look at the bottom, it says it's a place of religious seclusion. He says people with the right mindset can see prison actually as a good thing. Now, that's a weird statement, right? It says, if I have freedom in my love and in my soul am free, angels alone that soar above enjoy such liberty. Notice he changes that last stanza, but he's like, I'm not in prison. You can't imprison my mind. You can't imprison my soul. And therefore, I'm not really in jail. Okay? Obviously he's in jail. Okay? Obviously that he can't walk out of this room, but he's pointing out that that's not, all there is to it. I still have my freedom. It's a really great moment, especially when you're dealing with someone who's in jail because of like this Civil War issue England was struggling with right then. I'm not in prison. My mind and my soul are still free. Prisoners today still have similar thoughts. That's how you get by if you're stuck in there for 20 years. Realizing, you might be able to chain me up in here and keep me locked up, but you don't own all of me. It's that kind of idea. It's really neat. It also works really well for the girl he's writing to, saying, you're the reason I still feel free, which has got to make her feel really important as well. Right? These are just examples of the type of poetry you would have seen during this time period, which would revolve around things like war and imprisonment. Because if Carly's on the side of the Parliament people at this time, then she feels really impressive because she put me, the guy who likes the monarchy, in jail. But you don't have a lot of time before it's going to be flipped and I'm going to be back in charge. And so now you're going to get to enjoy prison. So, there are a lot of people struggling with this very same thing. It's very similar. Okay, let me back that up. It's not very similar, but it's somewhat similar to what we would deal with in the U.S. during our Civil War. All right? Not the same because they were fighting over very different things, but still, the concept is that, you might be on the winning side for 5 minutes and then the losing side the next 5. And not just losing as in my guy's not in the Oval Office, I'm mad, or my guy's in the Oval Office, woo-hoo, not that. We're talking about like literally I might lose my house, my job, my life. I have to go hide out. Remember when we watched the thing about Milton? That's what I think Milton was pro Charles I. He was pro monarchy. I think that was right. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Whichever side he was on, when the other side was in power, they saw a little image of him hiding behind the boxes, because he knew that this might not turn out well. So again, a lot of the works we read are just meant to be kind of emblematic of that time period, and these work for that really well. Is this really relevant to Bella today? Well, I hope you're not ever in jail, so I guess not. But the main thing is those first 2 lines in that last stanza about, and this is the same thing the devil said in Paradise Lost. I told you this was going to come back. The idea that prison's made in your mind more than anything else. And while, yes, I understand prison is prison, jail is jail. But the idea here is that you can still, not totally surrender to that if you have the right mindset. The devil says that, not that we want to take him as our advice person, but he says that in Paradise Lost, and then Lovelace says it again in this poem. All right? Okay, that will get us through today's poems. You've got a lot of time left. My advice would be work on these questions and get these finished, okay? But, again, your time. Question? Yes, I remember now. Yeah, you can do that. If you're not back in time, I'll do it. You should have plenty of time.